Hello and welcome to a Canadian Highlander points update hosted here over at LRRMTG. My name is Wheeler and I have a guest and we have some changes. I'm going to get to you in a second because there's some changes made to not only the Canadian Highlander points list, of which we're going to cover very shortly, but also changes made to the Canadian Highlander Council, the fine folks that make the changes for this wonderful format we have. One of these changes is our new counselor. We have Sacha Christensen. Sacha, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well. It's good to be here.
Okay, now say thank you for having me.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I don't do that here.
Okay, setting the tone right out the gates. Now, you replaced Patrick Berdusco of Pat Pod and Pat fame, and he would have kept up with the bit. So, in addition to that difference, what do you bring into the table for Canadian Highlander?
Well, you see, Ben, I win a lot, and that's why I'm here. A lot more than you, as you know from the year end.
Okay, that's true. So you may remember Sacha as the luck sack that had Caracas when I draw my only two legendaries when I got you down to like one, and then you also had Fury on curve, which was just mind-boggling. But I know Sacha as the person that lost to Jack Hanukkah in the finals of the year-end. Real nail biter, huh? Still thinking about that ponder sequencing?
Yeah, still thinking about that.
Yep. But it's more than that.
Yeah, and to give some background on me, I'm one of the old legacy players from Victoria. I used to play with Wheeler and Jeremy, also Trenton for many years. Came to Canadian Highlander after a long hiatus and have been here basically since we changed the proxy rule. I'm mostly known for playing 5-color and 4-color good stuff piles, various breach combo decks, trying to be more memey and sometimes trying to be a little bit more competitive.
It's good to get not only new blood I say new blood. We've known each other for over a decade.
I often joke I'm the boomer zoomer.
Yeah, but we get, new blood on the council as well as new blood to Canlander, like from a more dedicated, like playing the format weekly or constantly thinking about changes for the format, as well as your deck choice. Because the true boomers, the Robins, the Wheelers of the format, we look at some of these things and we're like, Sign of Draco? I don't know. It's fine. But getting, you played Breach combo and not Lotus Breach, which is pretty important.
Yeah, I built a Underworld Breach Reanimator hybrid deck. Spicy stuff. Yeah, that's important. I think that's important, and it's important to introduce who you are, and we'll talk a bit about what the council does, not just for raising and lowering cards after we cover the raising and lowering cards, but also want to give a little insight and show off some of the counselors that we have that aren't myself or Robin. We exist. We vote.
They're real. They're not just dummy accounts, I promise.
Yeah, we're not just a group of shadowy cabal figures that actually pull the strings.
Nope, just magic degens. Speaking of degenerate, we got a series of points changes, 4 in total, 3 decreases, 1 increase. We're going to cover the decreases first, giving short little blurbs as to, why these changes happened. And I'll say this right out of the gate. Every change we made, unanimous.
True, yes.
Yeah. In fact, I guess they had to be, considering the changes that were made. But we can get to that later. First things first, crop rotation. So crop rotation is kind of an awkward one. Picture this, a world without the initiative. Beautiful, right?
Hard to imagine.
But in fact, it existed, and in that world thrived a mid-range deck known as Lands Midrange.
Legends say.
And there were so many versions of this deck. And it kind of just went poof, disappeared. Partially because of the initiative, partially because of triomes pushing decks into just having these ludicrous mana bases and mid-range and control further becoming this homogenous blob. A lot of stuff happened. Cradlehoof.
Having a rough go of it.
I mean, have you read Fury? Have you read Pyrokinesis? It's tough. It's tough out there. Another crop rotation deck. This one looking for Gaia's Cradle, the Lands mid-range deck, and the Lands combos using crop rotation to find kind of whatever they need. And then also Academy lists, which I don't know. It's weird because I voted this and a following card down. I actually think Academy's in a pretty all right spot, but I'm a degenerate. And I've been doing this a lot longer than most people. And it is, these changes are kind of an extra bone to throw to more diverse Academy shells to, bolster them because they have a reasonable matchup against this 4-color boogeyman that we will address later. So crop rotation down to 0. Are you excited for crop rotation?
I am. One of the things I'm most excited for is brewing up all these sorts of green-based artifact decks, ones that can use, say, the halflings that produce food. These kinds of Urza Saga-centric mid-range decks, they're really close, and I've felt that they're not quite there. This is another step in that direction.
They're going to love you. The comment section's going to like you. They're hungry for the food deck and the Urza Saga.
The more I say it, the more existing it becomes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is there. It's just so difficult to build. But now it's easier because you're not like, oh, am I really just playing Triple Mox Academy or Triple Mox Crop Rot?
Yeah, and honestly, when I was building those decks previously, crop rotation was totally the spread with Triple Mox. And that always felt like the best decision you could make. And now that it's lowered, it really does feel like an extra point towards exactly a Tolarian Academy.
Great. Love to see it. Love to hear it. Next up, we have a card that I don't want to say that you're directly responsible for this card becoming free, but the decks that you tend to play, well, they're a little greedy. We got Price of Progress.
Yeah, quite a good card. And I'll be honest, when you talk about the different kinds of non-basic hate that exists in our format, Price of Progress is the only one I'm scared of. Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon and Back to Basics, pretty iffy, and more to the point, the power of the initiative is both in the sense that all the good cards require only 1 pip to use, which means that it's a lot more unlockable, and the first step gets you a basic. So getting out from those prison-style cards is a lot easier now that all those mid-range decks that, again, want to utilize really greedy mana bases can just avoid. Now, Price of Progress...
We also have Odawara, Beseiju, we have lands, so the cost of inclusion of cards to deal with those, sometimes temporarily, is just so low.
Yeah, it's so versatile, and this is the one card that really does it. It is powerful. The other thing that it opens up is a lot of these... one of the general tensions that exist in Highlander right now is, do you want to reach for more colors to increase your card quality, or do you want to go for less colors to have synergy pieces like this? And we just need more incentives for people to be playing 1 to 2 colors, and this is one of the few cards that actually fits in that niche.
This kind of pushes decks like Blue-Red as well, Blue-Red Tempo, into running some pretty interesting spreads with Mystical Tutor for Price of Progress being a bit more of a thing that you can play instead of dedicating 2 points alongside Ancestral Recall and then being like, well, I want True Name and I want Treasure Cruise or Boros. Boros is another deck where it's so close, but it has the most awkward point spread that you've ever seen because it's either on 8 points or it's on 10 and playing Mana Vault for some reason, and this will really help with that.
Yeah, the other thing I'm excited about with this card in particular, this might be the 5-color sickness infecting me, seeping into my core. I want to play this in a hyper aggro deck that's 4 to 3 colors. I want to deal maximum damage to me, and I want to deal maximum damage to them.
If this is an instant speed Flame Rift that also does 6 instead of 4, sign me up. That's fine by me. It is worth noting, because Price of Progress, probably one of the most controversial pointings in the history of the format, was done so before 10 Triomes.
Yes.
And I believe either before or right at the launch of the first set of Triomes as well. It was very close. Nobody could have foreseen
this future.
Yeah, it's sure exists. And so while I stand by it being the correct decision to point back then, albeit should have been a bit higher, I think it's a correct decision, and the council obviously agrees that it should be 0 now. The next card, there's not much to talk about. It's called Transmute Artifact. This card's bad. This card should have been off the points list a decade ago, but it's really hard to remove combo cards from the points list.
I'm acquainted with this problem, yes.
Yeah. Oh, so you've met Spencer.
I have, yes.
Yeah, interesting. Transmute Artifact. It's one where, again, I talked about how Academy, I actually think, is in a reasonable-ish spot, getting, boosting other versions of Academy decks so that it's not just Mana Rock plus wheels. is an admirable goal, and one that I think the crop rotation changes will help. But I think the transmute artifact going to zero is also going to be quite helpful for that. It's the kind of card where you wouldn't play it in bigger academy, like massive academy ramp, like Racing to Ugin or Kappa Cannoneer or Paradox combo. But if I'm talking about, the food deck you mentioned, you might want to play it. Goblin Welder kind of builds where you are taking an 8 cast.
Yeah, and even just the ability to, obviously you don't get the cast trigger, but the One Ring really has revolutionized the Academy decks. And even though, obviously, Transmute Artifact not getting that important protection clause, still a very powerful card to put into play. And this is a card that lets you do it ahead of curve.
Also, eggs. Worth mentioning. I'm a little biased, but eggs, if you ever need a deck to come in and try and wash away a bunch of control or like blue-red X decks, eggs is a great one. And this is a little, just here you go, play your Wish Claw instead of this, which is nice. But yeah, the card sucks.
Yeah, the one other thing that I think it's important to recognize with this card, we have a whole host of 2-card combos in the format. The weakest of those 2-card combos historically, or at least right now, does seem to be Time Vault. And this is one of the cards that does feed into that archetype and gives it just a little bit more oomph to compete with the other 2 options that exist.
Time Vault being the weakest A+B combo. Why, Sacha, that's a great segue into the final card that we have. I do agree that this card is better in Time Vault than some of the other spots. The final card is an increase of points. Flash. Flash is going from 5 points to 7 points. So the first 3 were all went from 1 to 0, removed from the points list. This one's going up 2 points. This is one of the A+B combos.
Yep, and now has become the dominant A+B combo deck in terms of common consensus. Overall meta, results may vary. That applies.
Yeah, of course, the other compatriots being Time Vault combo, Time Vault being 7 points, and Thassa's Oracle combo. Thassa's Oracle being 7 points, Tandem Pact being an additional point, but Tandem Pact that's just a real Magic card.
Yeah.
That's just a fine Magic card. And you said Time Vault was a little bit weaker. And this is great because I get to disagree with the guest we brought on, where the conversation surrounding this card popped up before we went ahead with the change, and now that this is public, of course, a lot of people asking like, well, what's the deal? Which is the weakest one now? Yada yada. They're different. They each have different strengths. They use different pieces. They find themselves in different homes. Time Vault is a card that you could throw Time Vault into a Paradox Academy deck, and you're good to go. You could build the Time there. We have seen Time Vault builds over the history of Canlander where they are in artifact ramp decks. They are in A+B like hard combo. And we've seen it even in like mid-range piles on the Discord.
Yeah, way back.
Well, you should see some of the Orzhov 2-card Monty piles. This is an old vintage deck that is bad, and well, you should feel bad if you know what I'm talking about. I certainly do. But there's a bunch of exploration being done for cards like that.
Yeah, and the real important thing, you're totally right in articulating that they all have different strengths and weaknesses between these 2-card combos. The important difference is that where the points of interaction are. Because if you're choosing to play a 2-card combo deck, what you're really saying is, I want to play something that is harder to interact with at the cost of being a bit slower, because you usually resolve 2 tutors to win.
Right.
And the thing that Time Vault and Flash, or the thing that Flash has really gotten recently, is an upgrade in the form of Samwise, which won't get into the details of the combo, but it compresses the pile. So 2 of the historic ways to interact with the combo, that being a removal spell or a piece of instant speed graveyard interaction, now are not effective ways to stop the combo.
Especially with, like you said, when we slot in Samwise, Gamgee, that is, there's a couple of Sams, it cuts the mana on the overall combo, letting you slot in not only a card like Grand Abolisher, which prevents your opponents from activating abilities or casting spells, which is kind of key into interrupting this, but also the flexibility to maybe slide in Sylvan Safekeeper and Gingerbrute. So Flash went from this combo, this A+B combo that had a whole bunch of points taken away from it, rightfully so, other cards kind of paying for the sins of Flash, Summoner's Pack and Protean Hulk being the 2 big ones, to becoming this A plus B that it's okay to draw some of your pieces because some of those pieces just say no in the first place. And you just have backup cards and you can operate at either instant speed or on your turn with complete protection. It's a bit too much. And this kind of levels out the playing field and makes the question of which A plus B do I play, not what is the absolute best, but instead,
what's the best for my meta?
Exactly. Yeah, which is pretty important. That's a big part of Canadian Highlander, is that it's not just cut and dry.
Yeah, and we don't play with sideboards, so those kinds of deck building decisions matter so much more in the context of our format.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of decisions, we did make some other decisions, so we won't talk about all of them right now, but we thought it's important that folks know that these aren't the only cards that we voted on. Some other cards included Ancient Tomb, Birthing Pod, Minsk and Boo, Timeless Heroes.
Strip Mine.
Strip Mine.
I think that's the bunch.
I think that's it. We talked about other cards, but didn't vote on them. Stuff like Natural Order, Tinker, Wrenn and Six.
Gifts Ungiven.
Gifts Ungiven. This is our way of saying we are doing this. It's not just the cards you see in front of us. And in fact, the notification on the Discord that describes all the changes also covers the voting results for the cards that didn't get passed. If a card is to be added to the points list or removed, or if there is a change of more than 1 point, much like all the cards we talked about today, it requires a unanimous 5-0. And so certain cards like Birthing Pod, which got 2-3'd as for the yeses, but that would be taking it off the list. So, oops, blame me.
We tried.
Yeah. Well, maybe later. I can be convinced. I like to.
It's an ongoing discussion, and that's the really nice thing about a pointing situation where we can react flexibly to the demands of the format. We can react flexibly to the new cards that get printed, and also to emerging archetypes. And honestly, there's still a lot of room in Canlander for that kind of innovation. And it's really nice to see because even without the points changes, I'm excited to brew new decks. With the points changes, even more excited.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, and we hope that you at home have some ideas as well. In fact, in the comment section below, let us know. How are you going to try to break your Flash Price of Progress Transmute Artifact Crop Rotation deck? Yeah, just let us know.
The answer is with Academy Rector.
Yeah, it's probably Academy Rector, actually. James, cut the tape. We need to get brewing chop chop. Thank you. Thank you, Sacha, for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, not going to go for the bit. And thank you for watching and for tuning in. If you want more information on Canadian Highlander and everything else we do, you can check the description down below or, I don't know, harass us online. Don't do that. We get that enough. Okay, bye. Have a good one.
Take care.